The autumn air in Ashwood, Oregon, carried the crisp scent of fallen leaves. As Ethan Caldwell pushed open the door to his craftsman-style bungalow, his boots heavy from an early shift at the fire station. At 32, Ethan was a man of routine, steady, loyal, the kind of guy who'd spent 6 years building a life with his fiancée, Lauren Harper, dreaming of a family in this tight-knit town. Their wedding was 6 weeks away, and Ethan had been savoring the small joys, picking out tuxes, debating band playlists, and imagining Lauren walking down the aisle. But that evening, as he stepped into the dimly lit living room, a glittery package on the kitchen counter stopped him cold. It was a small gift bag, tied with a pink ribbon, a tag scrawled in looping cursive. "To the fiercest bride-to-be, you owned that night. XOXO, Brooke." Ethan's brow furrowed. Brooke Sullivan, Lauren's best friend since their college days at Oregon State, was a whirlwind of chaos, loud, impulsive, always pushing Lauren into late-night adventures. Ethan tolerated her, but her influence grated, especially when she'd drag Lauren to Portland bars, leaving him to field texts at 2 a.m. about just one more drink. The tag's words, "You owned that night," hit like a warning bell. Lauren's bachelorette party had been last weekend, a Portland blowout Brooke had planned. Lauren had returned Sunday morning, hungover but bubbly, saying it was just girls being girls. Ethan had laughed it off, trusting her. Now, staring at the bag, a knot tightened in his gut. He set his keys down, the house quiet except for the hum of the fridge. Lauren was at her graphic design job, not due home for hours. Ethan told himself it was nothing, probably some tacky party favor. But curiosity clawed at him. He untied the ribbon, spilling the contents, a plastic bride-to-be tiara, a glittery sash, and a shower of confetti that dusted the counter. Then his fingers brushed something else, a pair of men's boxer briefs crumpled, clearly worn. His stomach lurched. A gag gift, maybe. Brooke's sense of humor was crude, but this felt wrong. At the bottom, buried under glitter, was a USB drive, unmarked, its black plastic glinting like a threat. Ethan's heart thudded as he grabbed his laptop from the coffee table, the fire station's stress drills kicking in to keep his hands steady. He plugged in the USB, clicking the single video file. The screen flickered to life. A shaky clip of Lauren at a Portland nightclub, her auburn hair loose, the tiara crooked on her head. She was laughing, surrounded by Brooke and their friends, shots lined up on a glowing bar. Ethan recognized Sarah, the quieter one, and Emma, always tagging along. Lauren looked radiant but wild, her eyes glassy, her movements loose. Brooke's voice boomed through the speakers. "Here's our queen, slaying her last free night." The crowd cheered, but Ethan's chest tightened. Lauren wasn't just celebrating, she was unraveling. The video cut to a darker scene. A strip club, neon lights pulsing. Lauren was on a stage, grinding against a shirtless dancer, her hands roaming as Brooke whooped, "Get it, girl!" Ethan's jaw clenched, his breath shallow. It was a bachelorette party. Maybe this was normal. But the next clip shattered that hope. Lauren, now in a plush lounge, was flanked by 3 men, strangers, their smirks predatory. They leaned in, laughing, one brushing her arm. Then one kissed her, and Lauren didn't pull away, she deepened it, her hands in his hair. Another man joined, his lips on her neck. Brooke's voice cackled, "Lauren, you legend! Bride of the damn century!" The final frame showed Lauren leading the trio toward a hotel room door, her giggle echoing as the screen went black. Ethan sat frozen, the laptop's glow casting shadows across his face. The woman he'd loved for 6 years, who'd cried when he proposed under Ashwood's starlit pines, who'd planned their future over late-night tacos, was a stranger. The video looped in his mind, her laugh, her touch, the hotel door closing. Brooke's narration burned worst of all, a taunt that this was a triumph. Ethan's hands shook as he yanked the USB out, his firefighters' calm crumbling. Lauren had betrayed him, not just with one mistake, but with a reckless, gleeful plunge into chaos, egged on by the friend she called her ride or die. The life they'd built in Ashwood, Saturday farmers' markets, her sketches framed on their walls, their dog napping by the hearth, felt like a lie. As the sun dipped below the Cascades, Ethan stared at the glitter-strewn counter, knowing nothing would ever be the same. Ethan Caldwell sat on the worn leather couch in his Ashwood bungalow, the USB drive clutched in his fist like a grenade. The laptop screen was dark now, but the images from the Portland nightclub video burned in his mind. Lauren Harper, his fiancée of 6 years, laughing as she kissed strangers, her hands tangled in their hair leading them to a hotel room. Brooke Sullivan's voice, "Lauren, you legend," echoed like a mocking chant. The glitter from the gift bag still clung to the kitchen counter, a cruel reminder of the bachelorette party that had shattered his world. It was past midnight, the town's quiet, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves outside. But Ethan's heart raced as if he were sprinting through a fire. He stood, pacing the living room, his firefighter's boots scuffing the hardwood. The space felt alien now, their space, where Lauren's laughter once filled Sunday mornings, where they'd bickered over paint swatches for their future nursery. Every corner held a memory, her sketchbooks stacked by the fireplace, the photo of them at Crater Lake, her arms around his waist, both grinning like they'd cracked life's code. Ethan stopped at the photo, his throat tight. Had that Lauren ever existed? Or had he been blind, building a future with a woman who could throw it all away for one night of chaos? He sank back onto the couch, the USB drive digging into his palm. Part of him wanted to replay the video, to search for some sign it wasn't real, a glitch, a misunderstanding. But the truth was undeniable. Lauren hadn't just stumbled into betrayal, she'd reveled in it, egged on by Brooke's cheers. Ethan's mind spiraled, replaying their 6 years together. The late nights when Lauren came home reeking of wine, giggling about Brooke's epic bar crawls. Had there been others? The times she'd brushed off his concerns, saying, "You're too serious, babe. Live a little." Were those red flags he'd ignored? He'd trusted her, loved her wild streak, thinking it balanced his steadiness. Now that trust felt like a knife in his chest. Ethan's phone buzzed on the coffee table, Lauren's name flashing. She'd texted twice since he'd found the package. "Hey, babe, late night at work, be home soon. And miss you, can't wait for our big day." The words mocked him, each one a lie. He imagined her walking through the door, her auburn hair messy from a long day, her smile bright as she kissed his cheek. Could he face her, scream, demand answers? The thought made his stomach churn. What could she say? That it was a mistake? That she was drunk? None of it would erase the image of her leading those men away, Brooke's laughter ringing like a victory bell. He tossed the phone aside, his hands raking through his dark hair. Ethan wasn't a crier. Years at the fire station had taught him to bury pain, to focus on the next step. But this wasn't a fire he could douse. The woman he'd proposed to under Ashwood's pines, who'd whispered about their kids' names over coffee, had obliterated their future. He pictured their wedding, the barn venue they'd booked, the fairy lights Lauren loved, the vows he'd been drafting in his head. All of it was ash now, and the grief hit like a physical blow, doubling him over. He pressed his fist to his eyes, willing the images to stop. Lauren's lips on a stranger, her giggle as the hotel door closed. Yet beneath the grief, anger simmered. Brooke's roll gnawed at him, her gift bag, her video, her smug XOXO. She hadn't just watched Lauren's betrayal, she'd celebrated it, packaged it like a trophy. Ethan's jaw tightened, his firefighter's instinct kicking in, identify the threat, contain it. Brooke wasn't just Lauren's friend, she was a catalyst, a spark that had ignited this disaster. But Lauren wasn't blameless. She'd chosen this, chosen to kiss, to touch, to walk away from him. The realization cut deeper than the betrayal itself. The woman he loved was capable of this, and he'd never seen it coming. Ethan stood again, crossing to the kitchen. He swept the glitter into the trash, the tiara and sash following. The boxer briefs stared up at him, a taunt. He grabbed them with a paper towel, tossing them out the back door into the garbage bin, the lid slamming shut with a clang that echoed in the night. He kept the USB, slipping it into his pocket. It was evidence, a weapon, though he didn't yet know how he'd use it. As dawn crept over the Cascades, painting the sky grey, Ethan leaned against the counter, exhaustion settling in. Lauren would be home soon, expecting their usual morning, coffee, kisses, wedding talk. But the man she'd come home to wasn't the same. He wasn't sure who he was anymore, but he knew one thing. He couldn't stay here, pretending nothing had changed. The first light of dawn seeped through the kitchen blinds of the Ashwood bungalow, casting slanted shadows across Ethan Caldwell's face as he stood by the counter, the USB drive a heavy weight in his pocket. Hours had passed since he'd trashed the bachelorette party relics, the glitter and tiara gone, but the images of Lauren Harper's betrayal, kissing strangers, laughing as she led them to a hotel room, clawed at his mind. Her texts, "Miss you, can't wait for our big day," sat unanswered on his phone, each word a fresh wound. Ethan's firefighter training urged action, but confronting Lauren felt futile. Her excuses wouldn't erase the truth. As the clock ticked toward her return from work, he made a choice. He couldn't face her, not now, maybe not ever. He had to leave silently, before the life they'd built in Ashwood suffocated him. Ethan moved with purpose, his boots quiet on the hardwood as he slipped into their bedroom. The room smelled of Lauren's lavender lotion, a scent that once comforted him, but now turned his stomach. He pulled a duffel bag from the closet, its canvas worn from camping trips they'd taken together. Nights by the Deschutes River, her head on his shoulder under the stars. He shook off the memory, stuffing the bag with essentials. Jeans, t-shirts, a jacket, his toothbrush, and the charger for his phone still buzzing with Lauren's messages. He didn't pause to sort through their shared life. No keepsakes, no photos, not even the dog's leash. Let her keep the furniture, the dishes, the dreams they'd pinned to this house. He wanted nothing tying him to her. In the study, Ethan grabbed his laptop and a folder of wedding contracts from the desk. The barn venue, the caterer, the florist, each document was a plan he'd poured his heart into, now worthless. He sat at the desk, the USB drive beside him, and dialed the venue's number. "This is Ethan Caldwell," he said, voice steady despite the ache in his chest. "I need to cancel a wedding booking for next month." The woman on the line hesitated. "Oh, I'm so sorry. Can you share the reason?" Ethan's grip tightened on the phone. "Personal reasons. It's not happening." She rattled off cancellation fees, 30% of the deposit, but he cut her off. "Fine. Just do it." He hung up, the finality of it like a door slamming shut. The caterer and florist got the same call, each conversation stripping away another piece of their future. Ethan's phone buzzed again, Lauren calling this time. He silenced it, her name a taunt. She'd be home soon, expecting coffee and wedding chatter, oblivious to the wreckage she'd left. He couldn't stay to see her face, to hear her lies. He needed distance, a place to breathe, to think. Opening his laptop, he searched for rentals, avoiding sterile hotels that felt too raw. A cabin in the Cieslaw National Forest, an hour's drive from Ashwood, caught his eye. Rustic, secluded, with a view of the Pacific. Perfect. He booked it for 10 days, paying up front with his credit card, the cost irrelevant compared to the chaos he was escaping. The confirmation email pinged, a small anchor in the storm. He slung the duffel over his shoulder, taking one last look at the bungalow. The living room where they'd danced to old vinyl records, the kitchen where Lauren burned pancakes and laughed, the porch where they'd planned their vows, all tainted now, stained by Brooke Sullivan's cackling bride of the century, and Lauren's choices. Ethan locked the front door, the click echoing in the morning stillness. His truck was parked out front, a beat-up Ford he'd driven since college. He tossed the bag in the back, the USB drive still in his pocket, a silent promise of reckoning. As he slid into the driver's seat, his phone lit up again. "Lauren. Babe, where are you? Early meeting cancelled, coming home now." The words twisted the knife, but he turned the phone face down, started the engine, and pulled away. The road out of Ashwood wound through pine forests, the Cascades looming in the distance. Ethan drove in silence, no radio, just the hum of tires and his racing thoughts. Had Lauren always been this reckless, hiding behind her charm? Had Brooke's influence been the spark, or was Lauren the flame? He didn't know, and the uncertainty gnawed at him. The town faded in his rearview mirror, its quaint streets and farmer's market, a life he no longer recognized. An hour later, he reached the Cieslaw cabin, a weathered A-frame nestled among cedars, the ocean's roar faint in the distance. He parked, grabbed his bag, and stepped onto the porch, the salt air sharp in his lungs. Inside, the cabin was sparse. Wooden floors, a stone fireplace, a single bed. But it was enough. He dropped his duffel, sank onto the bed, and let the weight of his decision settle. He'd vanished from Lauren's world, but the war inside him was just beginning. Ethan Caldwell S. boots crunched on the gravel as he stood on the porch of the Cieslaw National Forest cabin, the Pacific's distant roar blending with the rustle of cedars. The A-frame cabin, its wood weathered by coastal storms, felt like a fortress against the chaos he'd left in Ashwood. His duffel bag lay inside, dumped beside the single bed, the USB drive still in his pocket, a silent reminder of Lauren Harper's betrayal at her Portland bachelorette party. The hour-long drive from Ashwood had been a blur. Lauren's final text, "Babe, where are you?" searing his mind as he'd silenced his phone. Now, in the late morning light, the forest's quiet pressed against him, amplifying the storm within. He stepped inside, the cabin's sparse interior, stone fireplace, scuffed wooden table, a faded armchair, offering no distractions from his thoughts. Ethan dropped into the chair, his firefighter's frame sinking into the cushions. The weight of leaving Lauren, their bungalow, their life, settled like damp fog. He'd vanished without a word, cancelling their wedding and driving into the wilderness, but escape didn't dull the ache. The video looped in his head, Lauren's lips on strangers, her laugh as she led them to a hotel room, Brooke Sullivan's voice crowing, "Bride of the century." He pulled the USB from his pocket, turning it over in his calloused hands. It was evidence, but also a wound, proof of a woman he no longer knew. His phone, face down on the table, vibrated again. Ethan didn't need to look to know it was Lauren, her calls and texts piling up since she'd returned to an empty bungalow. He imagined her confusion, maybe panic as she saw his clothes gone, the wedding contracts missing. Would she guess why? Or would she play innocent, spinning lies about her girls' night? The thought of her voice, bright, coaxing, the same voice that planned their future over Ashwood's farmer's market coffee, made his stomach twist. He powered off the phone, the screen going black. Let her wonder. Let her feel the void he'd carried since opening that glittery gift bag. Ethan rose, pacing the cabin's creaky floor. The solitude he'd craved wasn't soothing. It was a mirror, reflecting every doubt. Had he been too trusting, ignoring Lauren's late nights with Brooke? Had her charm masked a recklessness he'd refused to see? He stopped by the window, the Pacific glinting through the trees. The ocean's vastness reminded him of their first trip together, a weekend in Yakats, where Lauren had danced barefoot on the beach, her auburn hair whipping in the wind. He'd thought then she was his forever. Now that memory felt like a trick, tainted by her choices in Portland's neon-lit chaos. He needed to ground himself to make this cabin more than a hideout. Ethan unpacked his duffel, stacking clothes in a corner, setting his laptop on the table. He lit a fire in the stone hearth, the crackle filling the silence. The routine steadied him, a firefighter's trick to tame chaos, but as the flames grew, so did his anger. At Lauren for shattering their life, at Brooke for cheering her on, at himself for not seeing it sooner. He pulled out his laptop, hesitating before opening it. Part of him wanted to re-watch the video, to fuel his rage, but he resisted. Instead, he typed a list: call parents, cancel band, check work leave, practical steps, a lifeline to keep him from drowning. The cabin's isolation was both refuge and cage. Outside, a trail led to a cliff overlooking the ocean, and Ethan followed it, the salt air sharp against his face. The waves crashed below, relentless, mirroring the churn in his chest. He thought of his parents in Eugene, steady folks who'd supported his engagement, despite Lauren's wild streak. They deserved to know, but not yet. He wasn't ready for their questions, their pity. At the fire station, he'd need to request leave. His crew would notice his absence soon, but those were tomorrow's problems. Today, he stood on the cliff, the USB a weight in his pocket, and let the ocean's roar drown out Lauren's laugh, Brooke's taunts. Back inside, Ethan made coffee from a canister in the cabin's tiny kitchen, the bitter taste grounding him. He sat by the fire, the USB on the table now, a black shard of truth. Lauren's betrayal wasn't just a moment, it was a revelation, exposing cracks in their 6 years. He'd loved her spontaneity, her sketches, her warmth. But had he ignored her selfishness, her need for Brooke's chaos? The questions stung, each one a step toward accepting she wasn't the woman he'd proposed to. As night fell, the cabin dark except for the fire's glow, Ethan leaned back, exhaustion overtaking him. He'd fled Ashwood, but the real escape, letting go of Lauren, of the life he'd planned, was still ahead, and the USB in his pocket promised it wouldn't be quiet. 3 days into his retreat at the Cioslaw cabin, Ethan Caldwell stood by the stone fireplace, the Pacific's faint roar seeping through the walls. The USB drive, now on the wooden table beside his cooling coffee, had become a talisman of his unraveling life, proof of Lauren Harper's betrayal at her Portland bachelorette party, captured in grainy video with Brooke Sullivan's gleeful narration. The solitude of the cabin had sharpened Ethan's anger, no longer just a dull ache but a blade honed by every replayed memory of Lauren's laugh, Brooke's taunts, "Lauren, you legend," and the hotel door closing. Ignoring Lauren's flood of texts and calls, over 20 now, pleading, "Where are you? I'm freaking out," had been easy. But Brooke, the spark behind Lauren's chaos, demanded reckoning. Ethan couldn't move forward until he faced her. He powered on his phone, the screen lighting up with Lauren's unanswered messages, but he ignored them, scrolling to Brooke's contact. His thumb hovered over her name. Brooke Sullivan, Lauren's best friend since their Oregon State days, was a force of reckless energy, always pushing boundaries, always laughing too loud. Ethan had tolerated her for Lauren's sake, but her role in that video, cheering Lauren's infidelity like a twisted maestro, burned in his gut. He typed a message, short and deliberate. "Meet me at Driftwood Cafe in Ashwood, 2 p.m. tomorrow. We need to talk." No pleasantries, no hint of his rage. He hit send, the whoosh of the message cutting through the cabin's quiet. Ethan drove back to Ashwood the next day. The hour-long road through pine forests a tense prelude. The USB was in his jacket pocket, a weight as heavy as his resolve. Driftwood Cafe, a cozy spot on Ashwood's main street, was neutral ground, familiar enough to keep Brooke at ease, public enough to keep Ethan's temper in check. He arrived early, claiming a corner booth with a view of the door. The cafe hummed with locals, farmers grabbing coffee, mums chatting over scones, the barista calling out orders. Ethan ordered a black coffee, the bitter taste steadying his nerves as he rehearsed his approach. No yelling, no accusations, just the truth, cold and sharp, backed by the video. Brooke walked in at 2:05, her blonde hair pulled into a messy bun, her oversized sunglasses pushed up like a crown. She spotted Ethan and flashed a smile, all teeth and confidence, as if this were a casual catch-up. "Hey, stranger, where have you been hiding?" she chirped, sliding into the booth. Her nonchalance grated, but Ethan kept his face neutral, his firefighter's calm masking the storm inside. "Thanks for coming," he said, voice low. "I found something, from Lauren's bachelorette party." He pulled the USB from his pocket, setting it on the table between them. Brooke's smile faltered, her eyes flicking to the drive, then back to him. "What's this?" she asked, her tone still light but edged with caution. Ethan leaned forward, his gaze locked on hers. "A video. You're in it, narrating. While Lauren's with 3 guys in Portland." The words landed like a slap. Brooke's face froze, her sunglasses slipping slightly as she blinked. "Whoa, hold on," she said, laughing nervously. "You're blowing this out of proportion. It was just a party, Ethan, girls being girls." Ethan's jaw tightened. He slid his phone across the table, the video queued up, paused on Lauren kissing a stranger. He pressed play, the sound low but clear. Brooke's voice, "Get it, girl." As Lauren moved to the hotel room, Brooke's eyes widened, her hand twitching toward the phone, but Ethan pulled it back. "Girls being girls," he repeated, voice cold. "You filmed her cheating. You cheered her on. You sent me this like it was a trophy." Brooke shifted, her confidence crumbling. "I didn't send that," she stammered. "Someone must have. I was just joking around, okay? Lauren was drunk. It didn't mean anything." Ethan leaned closer, his voice a controlled burn. "You packaged it, the gift bag, the boxes, your little XOXO. You wanted me to see it. Why?" Brooke's mouth opened, then closed, her excuses faltering under his stare. "I thought it was funny," she mumbled, barely audible. I didn't think you'd take it this way. Ethan's hand clenched under the table, but he kept his tone even. Funny? You helped destroy my life. Lauren's choices were hers, but you lit the match. He stood, pocketing the USB and phone. Stay out of my way, Brooke, and Lawrence, you've done enough. Brooke's face flushed, her eyes darting around the cafe as locals glanced their way. You're being dramatic, she hissed, but her voice shook. Ethan didn't respond, leaving a $10 bill for the coffee and walking out, the bell above the door jingling behind him. In his truck he exhaled, the confrontation's weight lifting slightly, but the USB in his pocket burned hotter. Brooke was rattled, but this was just the start. Lauren's world was next. Ethan Caldwell gripped the steering wheel of his Ford truck, the USB drive a burning weight in his jacket pocket as he drove toward the outskirts of Ashwood. The confrontation with Brooke Sullivan at Driftwood Cafe the day before had left him lighter, but not satisfied. Her stammered excuses and flushed panic were a start, but Lauren Harper's world still stood, built on lies Ethan had once believed. The video of her Portland bachelorette party betrayal, kissing strangers, leading them to a hotel room, Brooke's voice crowing legend, was a weapon, and Ethan was done wielding it in shadows. Lauren's parents, Margaret and Richard Harper, were next. Their conservative values and pride in their daughter's perfect life made them the perfect audience to shatter her facade. The Harpers lived in a tidy ranch-style house on a quiet Ashwood lane, its manicured lawn and American flag, a testament to their small-town respectability. Ethan had spent countless Sundays there, eating Margaret's pot roast, debating football with Richard, both treating him like a son. They'd beamed at his proposal to Lauren, gushing about grandkids and family traditions. Now as he parked outside their home, the memory of their warmth clashed with the USB's cold truth. Ethan's phone, still off since the cafe, spared him Lauren's desperate texts. "Ethan, please, talk to me." But he knew she was unraveling, likely calling her parents for support. He'd get there first. Ethan knocked, his firefighter's calm masking the churn in his gut. Margaret opened the door, her silver hair neat, her smile warm but curious. "Ethan, oh honey, we've been worried. Lauren said you've been distant." She ushered him inside, the smell of fresh-baked cookies filling the air. Richard looked up from his recliner in the living room, his reading glasses low on his nose. "Good to see you, son. What's going on?" Their kindness stung, but Ethan steeled himself, clutching the USB in his pocket. "I need to show you something," he said, voice steady. "It's about Lauren and why I left." Margaret's smile faded, her hand pausing on a tray of cookies. Richard set down his newspaper, brow furrowing. Ethan pulled out his laptop from his bag, setting it on their polished dining table. "This is hard," he said, meeting their eyes, "but you deserve the truth." He plugged in the USB, the video file glaring on the screen. Margaret sat, her hands clasped tightly, while Richard stood behind her, arms crossed. Ethan pressed play. The Portland nightclub flashed, Lauren dancing, then at the strip club grinding on a dancer, Brooke's voice jeering. "Get it, girl." The lounge scene followed. Lauren with 3 men kissing, touching, leading them to the hotel room. Brooke's final bride of the century echoed as the screen went black. Silence gripped the room, broken only by Margaret's sharp intake of breath. Her face crumpled, eyes welling as she stared at the blank screen. Richard's jaw clenched, his knuckles white on the chair back. This can't be right," he muttered, voice thick. "Not our Lauren." Ethan swallowed, his throat tight. "I wish it wasn't. I found it in a gift bag Brooke left at our place. She filmed it, sent it to me." Margaret's hand flew to her mouth, a sob escaping. "That girl, Brooke, she's always been trouble," she whispered, shaking her head. Richard's eyes narrowed, anger replacing shock. And Lauren chose this? Threw away everything, for what? Ethan let their emotions spill, their disbelief mirroring his own from that first night. "I loved her," he said quietly. "I thought she was my future. But this, and I can't unsee it. I cancelled the wedding, left the house. I'm sorry you're finding out like this." Margaret reached for his hand, tears streaming. "Oh, Ethan, you don't apologize. We raised her better than this." Richard paced, his voice rising. "She's been lying to us, to you, to everyone, calling us, acting like you're the one who's wrong." He stopped, facing Ethan. "What do you need from us?" "Nothing," Ethan said, closing his laptop. "I just needed you to know who she is now. She's your daughter, but she's not the woman I thought I'd marry." He stood, the USB back in his pocket. Margaret hugged him, her grip fierce despite her trembling. "Your family, Ethan. This isn't your fault." Richard clapped his shoulder, his eyes hard. "We'll handle Lauren. This stops here." Ethan nodded, the weight of their support bittersweet. As he stepped outside, the afternoon sun harsh on his face, he felt the ground shift. The Harpers' image of Lauren was shattered, and her lies were crumbling. In his truck, he glanced at the USB, its power growing. Lauren's reckoning was closing in, and Ethan was only getting started. Ethan Caldwell sat on the Searslaw cabin's porch, the Pacific's distant crash a steady pulse against the cedar's whisper. A week had passed since he'd shown Lauren Harper's parents the USB video, her Portland bachelorette party betrayal, her kisses with strangers, Brooke Sullivan's mocking legend, and the fallout was spreading through Ashwood like wildfire. The USB, now tucked in his duffel inside, had done its work. Margaret and Richard Harper's shattered trust had set off a chain reaction, and Lauren's carefully curated life was unraveling. Ethan's phone, powered on briefly that morning, showed no new texts from Lauren, her silence louder than her earlier pleas. "Ethan, please, talk to me." Ashwood's gossip mill, fueled by the Harpers' outrage and Brooke's rattled confession, was grinding her reputation to dust. Back in Ashwood, the ripples were undeniable. Ethan's firefighter buddy, Matt, had texted from the station. "Man, town's buzzing. Lauren's name is Mud." Her parents told their church group, and it's everywhere. Matt, loyal but nosy, added that Lauren had been seen at the grocery store, head down, avoiding eyes. The Harpers, pillars of Ashwood's Presbyterian Church, had shared their daughter's shame with their prayer circle, framing it as a call for redemption, but igniting whispers instead. By Tuesday, the Church book club, where Lauren once led discussions on Jane Austen, had quietly asked her to step back. The barn venue, already cancelled by Ethan, had leaked the story to local vendors, and soon florists and caterers who once adored Lauren's charm were trading stories of her wild night in Portland. Brooke wasn't spared. After Ethan's confrontation at Driftwood Cafe, her attempt to downplay the video, "It was just a party," had backfired. A cafe regular, overhearing her shaky defense, had tipped off a local gossip blog, Ashwood Whispers. The blog, a guilty pleasure for the town's bored retirees, posted a vague but damning piece. "Local bridesmaid's gift exposes bachelorette scandal." Brooke's yoga studio, where she taught sunrise classes, saw bookings drop as clients, mostly moms who valued discretion, cancelled. Her Instagram, once a grid of sunsets and smoothies, was flooded with cryptic comments. "Karma's real, huh?" She'd gone quiet, her usual bravado buried under Ashwood's judgment. Lauren's social circle crumbled fastest. Sarah and Emma, her closest friends after Brooke, had been at the bachelorette party but claimed ignorance of the hotel escapade. When Margaret confronted them, tearfully demanding answers, both swore they'd left early. True or not, their loyalty wavered as the town turned. Sarah, a teacher, distanced herself to protect her job, while Emma, a barista at Driftwood, stopped tagging Lauren in posts. The wedding's cancellation, once a private wound, was now public law, dissected at the farmer's market and the local diner. Lauren, who'd thrived on Ashwood's adoration, was a pariah, her auburn hair and bright smile no longer a shield. Ethan, isolated in the cabin, felt the news like a distant echo. He'd wanted Lauren to face consequences, but the scale of her fall, church snubs, lost friends, a town's scorn, stirred a pang of something like pity. He pushed it down, remembering her choices, the men, the hotel, the lies. The USB had been his truth, not his cruelty. Still, he avoided Ashwood, knowing his presence would fan the flames. He hiked the Searslaw trails daily, the ocean's roar drowning out thoughts of Lauren's texts, Brooke's excuses, the Harpers' tears. At night, by the cabin's fire, he journaled, not plans but fragments. Was she ever mine? Did I miss the signs? The words grounded him, a firefighter's way of mapping chaos. Yet Ashwood's drama wasn't done. Matt's latest text hinted at Lauren's next move. Heard she's leaving town. Packing up, maybe Portland. The idea of Lauren fleeing, the woman who'd planned a nursery in their bungalow, who'd laughed under Ashwood's pines, felt like a final cut. Would she rebuild, reinvent herself in the city's neon haze, or would her shame follow? Ethan didn't know, and for the first time, he didn't care. The cabin, the USB, the ocean had carved a space for him to breathe, to see beyond Lauren's betrayal. As he stood on the cliff trail, the Pacific vast before him, he realized Ashwood's gossip wasn't his story anymore. Lauren's ruin was hers to carry, and Ethan was ready to let it go. The Seoslaw cabin's wooden floor creaked under Ethan Caldwell's boots as he stood by the window, the Pacific's grey expanse churning beyond the cedars. 10 days had passed since he'd fled Ashwood, the USB drive, proof of Lauren Harper's Portland bachelorette party betrayal, still a quiet weight in his duffel. The town's gossip, relayed by Matt, had painted Lauren's fall. Church snubs, lost friends, whispers of her wild night with strangers, Brooke Sullivan's mocking legend, fueling Ashwood's scorn. Ethan had felt the ripples from afar, his anger cooling into resolve on the cabin's cliff trails. But now, a sharp knock on the cabin door shattered the morning stillness. His gut twisted. He hadn't told anyone where he was except Matt, who'd sworn silence. Ethan opened the door, and there stood Lauren Harper, her auburn hair tangled, her green eyes red-rimmed and hollow. The woman who'd once lit up Ashwood's farmer's market with her smile looked like a ghost, her jacket rumpled, her hands trembling. "Ethan," she said, voice cracking. I found you. Matt slipped, said you were here." Ethan's jaw tightened, his firefighter's calm barely holding. He stepped back, leaving the door open, but saying nothing. Lauren hesitated, then entered, her boots scuffing the floor. The air thickened, the cabin's sparse interior, stone fireplace, single chair, scuffed table, closing in around them. "Why are you here?" Ethan asked, voice low, leaning against the wall. Lauren's eyes darted, landing on the duffel, then back to him. "I had to see you," she said, words tumbling. "Everything's falling apart. My parents, my friends, the town. They know, Ethan. About Portland. About everything." Her voice broke, tears spilling. "I'm so sorry. I was drunk, stupid, caught up in Brooke's chaos. It wasn't me." Ethan's hand clenched, the memory of the video. Lauren kissing strangers, laughing, hotel door shutting, burning fresh. "Wasn't you," he repeated, cold. "I saw you, Lauren. You chose it, every step." She flinched, wrapping her arms around herself. "I know what you saw," she whispered. "Brooke sent you that video, didn't she? She set me up, egged me on. I was out of my mind, Ethan. I swear, I love you. I still want us." Her plea hung desperate, but Ethan's eyes hardened. He pulled the USB from the duffel, holding it up. "This isn't Brooke's. It's yours. Your choices, your hands on them, your laugh. You don't get to blame her." Lauren's face crumpled, her knees buckling as she sank into the chair. "Please," she sobbed. "I'll fix it. I'll leave Ashwood, start over with you, anywhere." Ethan stayed still, the ocean's roar faint through the window. Her words echoed their past, nights planning their bungalow nursery, her sketches pinned to the fridge. But they were hollow now, tainted by lies. "You think I can trust you again?" he asked, voice steady but raw. "I showed your parents. They saw who you are. Ashwood knows. You can't undo that." Lauren's sobs grew, her hands covering her face. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she choked. "I was scared, okay? Of the wedding, of forever. I messed up, but I'm here begging." The cabin felt smaller, her tears a weight Ethan refused to carry. He'd spent days on these trails, untangling her betrayal from his future, and her presence threatened to drag him back. "You're not begging for me," he said, stepping closer, voice cutting. "You're begging for your old life, the one you threw away. I'm done, Lauren. I was done the second I saw that video." She looked up, eyes wide, searching his face for a crack in his resolve. Finding none, she stood, shaky, wiping her tears. "So that's it? 6 years and you walk away?" Ethan met her gaze, unflinching. "You walked first, in Portland." The words landed like a blow, and Lauren staggered back, her breath hitching. She turned toward the door, pausing as if to speak, but no words came. The door clicked shut behind her, the sound final in the cabin's quiet. Ethan sank onto the chair, the USB still in his hand, its weight lighter now. Outside, Lauren's car engine faded into the forest, and the ocean's pulse returned. He'd faced her, drawn the line, and for the first time, the path ahead felt his own. Not Lauren's, not Ashwood's, but his. Ethan Caldwell stood at the edge of the Cioslaw National Forest cliff trail, the Pacific Ocean stretching endless below, its waves carving a rhythm that matched his steady breaths. 2 weeks had passed since Lauren Harper's tearful confrontation in the cabin, her broken pleas, "I'll fix it, Ethan," fading with her car's engine into the forest. The USB drive, once a searing weight of her Portland bachelorette party betrayal, kissing strangers, Brooke Sullivan's taunting legend, now sat in a drawer inside the cabin, its power spent. Ashwood's gossip, once a wildfire fueled by the Harpers' outrage and Lauren's social ruin, had dulled to embers. Matt's texts confirming Lauren had left town for Portland, her life in Ashwood reduced to a cautionary tale. For Ethan, the cabin was no longer a hideout, but a starting point, a place to rebuild what Lauren's lies had shattered. He returned to the cabin, the A-frame's weathered wood glowing in the late morning sun. Inside, he packed his duffel with purpose, folding clothes, stowing his journal, pages filled with questions. Was she ever mine? Now giving way to plans. Ethan had called his parents in Eugene, their steady voices a lifeline as he explained the cancelled wedding, Lauren's betrayal, his retreat. "Come home when you're ready," his mom had said. No judgment, only love. At the fire station, he'd requested a month's leave, his crew supportive but curious, Matt promising to keep the rumors at bay. Today, Ethan would drive back to Ashwood, not to confront or dwell, but to tie up loose ends and step into a life unmoored from Lauren. In Ashwood, Ethan parked outside his bungalow, the sight of its blue shutters and rose bushes a quiet ache. He'd left it weeks ago, fleeing Lauren's texts, "Babe, where are you?" But now he entered with clarity. The house felt different, no longer theirs, her sketches gone from the fridge, her scent faded. He boxed up her remaining things, books, a scarf, a half-used sketchpad, labeling them for her parents to collect. Margaret had called, her voice heavy but kind, saying they'd store Lauren's belongings until she settled in Portland. Ethan worked methodically, a firefighter's discipline, each box a step toward closing their shared past. At the fire station, Ethan met Matt for coffee, the station's familiar clang of equipment grounding him. Matt, ever loyal, filled him in. "Lauren's gone, man. Packed up last week. Town's already moving on. New scandal at the high school." Ethan nodded, the news neither painful nor relieving, just fact. He thanked Matt for his silence about the cabin, then spoke to his chief, confirming his return in 2 weeks. The crew's easy banter, jokes about drills, a new rookie, felt like a bridge to normalcy, a life where Lauren's shadow didn't loom. Ethan left the station lighter, the USB's truth no longer defining him. Back at the bungalow, Ethan sat on the porch, a beer in hand, the evening sky bruising purple over Ashwood's pines. He'd listed the house with a realtor, the sale a final break from their planned future, nursery vows forever. The money would fund a fresh start, maybe in Eugene near his parents or somewhere new like Bend, where the mountains promised space to breathe. He thought of the Cioslaw trails, how their solitude had stripped away his anger, leaving room for something else, hope maybe, or at least possibility. His journal, now in the truck, held a new entry. "I'm not her betrayal. I'm what comes next." As night fell, Ethan drove back to the cabin, the Pacific's roarer companion through the forest. He lit a fire in the stone hearth, the crackle filling the quiet. The USB stayed in the drawer. He didn't need to see the video again. Lauren's choices, Brooke's cruelty, Ashwood's judgment were behind him. He'd loved Lauren, built a life with her. But that life was gone, and Ethan was no longer the man who'd proposed under Ashwood's stars. Tomorrow he'd call his parents, plan a visit, maybe scout Bend. The cabin, the ocean, the trails had given him back his footing, and as the fire glowed, Ethan felt the weight of 6 years lift. The path ahead was uncertain, but it was his, and for the first time in weeks, he was ready to walk it. The Portland rain streaked Lauren Harper's apartment window, the city's neon glow a cold contrast to Ashwood's pine-lined warmth. 3 months had passed since she fled the town, scorn, her bachelorette party betrayal exposed by Ethan Caldwell, USB, Brooke Sullivan's jeering legend echoing in her nightmares. Her new studio, a cramped box in a gritty northwest district, held little of her old life. A thrift store couch, a cracked mirror, her auburn hair now cropped short, as if cutting it could sever her past. Ashwood's whispers, church snubs, lost friends, her parents' tearful disappointment, had followed her here, a shadow no city noise could drown. She'd landed a temp job at a marketing firm, but her charm, once Ashwood's darling, faltered under Portland's indifferent gaze. Lauren scrolled her phone, avoiding Instagram. Her last post, a defiant city skyline, drew comments from Ashwood stragglers. Karma's a bitch. She'd blocked Brooke, whose yoga studio had shuttered after the scandal. But mutuals whispered Brooke was waitressing in Salem, her bravado gone. Lauren's parents, Margaret and Richard, sent stiff texts. "We're praying for you." But their calls had dwindled, their conservative values bruised by her shame. At night, alone with cheap wine, Lauren replayed Ethan's words in the Siuslaw cabin. "You walked first, in Portland." She'd tried calling him once a month ago, but his number was disconnected, a final cut. Her sketchpad, once filled with bungalow nursery dreams, lay blank, her creativity choked by regret. One evening, Lauren wandered into a dive bar, the kind Ashwood would have judged. A co-worker, Jess, had invited her, sensing her isolation. Over beers, Jess shared her own story, a messy divorce, a fresh start, and for the first time, Lauren spoke. About Ethan, the video, the hotel, her spiral. "I thought I could outrun it," she admitted, voice low. Jess listened, no pity, just a nod. "You can't undo it, but you can own it. Start small." Lauren left the bar lighter, Jess's number saved, a flicker of something like hope. She enrolled in an art class the next week, her first sketch, a jagged skyline, raw but honest. Portland wasn't home, and maybe never would be, but it was a place to face herself, one shaky step at a time. Half a state away, Ethan Caldwell leaned against a railing in Bend, the Deschutes River glinting under a crisp autumn sun. He'd moved here a month ago, the bungalow sale funding a small condo near the old mill district. Ashwood, with its gossip and Lauren's ghost, was a fading memory. Matt's texts now about football, not scandal. Ethan had joined a wildfire crew, the work grueling but grounding, his firefighter's instincts sharp among the Cascades' peaks. At a crew barbecue, he'd met Lena, a trail guide with a quick laugh, who'd dragged him hiking on his day off. They were friends, nothing more, but her ease, free of Lauren's shadow, reminded him he could connect again. Ethan's condo held traces of his new life, a topo map on the wall, a journal with fresh entries. "Bend feels right. I'm not running anymore." He'd visited his parents in Eugene, their hugs a steady anchor, and sent Margaret a brief note, wishing her well but closing that door. One night, sorting mail, Ethan found an unmarked envelope. Inside, a sketch of Ashwood's pines, no signature, but Lauren's style was unmistakable. He stared, the old ache faint, then set it aside. It wasn't an apology or a plea, just a relic of a life he'd left. He didn't owe her a response. On a clear morning, Ethan hiked Mount Bachelor with Lena, the summit's sweep stealing his breath. She pointed out peaks, her voice alive, and Ethan felt the past, Lauren's betrayal, the USB, Ashwood's judgment, dissolve into the mountain air. He wasn't the man who'd proposed under Ashwood's stars, nor the one who'd fled to the Siuslaw cabin. He was here now, carving a life from fire and stone. Below, Ben sprawled, a city of second chances, and as Ethan descended, his steps were sure. Lauren's reckoning was hers to bear, but Ethan's rise was his own, built on ground he'd reclaimed one trail at a time.